Hello dear friends. An end of the world is said to occur every 12,000 years due to solar storms and the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field. Opinion piece. Satellites at risk due to solar storms expected in the next 5 years. Big intensity in 2025. SpaceX satellites already destroyed in February. They are not prepared for big storms. United Nations censures criticism of the elite. Sanctions are far from reaching the expected result. Corn, wheat, soybeans fall hit by China, Ukraine and weather. Major brands quietly snaking bags into your food. Latin American currencies holding up better than most, Bloomberg says. Davos Forum is panicking because people are waking up. Let's start. Huge solar storms ahead could destroy many satellites, a US government scientist warns. A new era of space weather is about to rock our world and would likely destroy many satellites in the next 5 years, according to solar storm expert Zhu Weifang, a scientist at NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. Quote, "What you experienced in the last 2 years doesn't matter," Fang told the crowd Monday, August 8th, at the 36th Small Satellite Conference in Logan, Utah. In quotes again. "What you learned in the last 2 years won't apply in the next 5 years," he added. A new cycle of solar activity is much stronger than expected and is already presenting major problems for satellite operators trying to keep their spacecraft in orbit while maintaining functionality. Solar storms can easily destroy satellites. Satellites are used for many purposes. The most common modalities include civil and military Earth observation satellites, communications satellites, navigation satellites, weather satellites, space observatories. Space stations and orbiting spacecraft are also considered satellites. It occurred in February, or it happened in February. Fang warned the audience that the February solar storm, which was responsible for the destruction of dozens of newly launched SpaceX Starlink satellites, was just the tip of the iceberg. In quotes, "That storm was actually a minor storm in our catalog," he said. "It's not a major storm." One effect of the increased space weather activity the world will experience during this new solar cycle is a greater amount of drag on satellites as huge solar storms hit and expand the upper atmosphere, increasing its density. This was demonstrated in February when a solar storm caused 38 of the 49 newly launched SpaceX Starlink satellites to re-enter the atmosphere. The spacecraft's thrusters could not overcome the increased atmospheric drag generated by the solar storm, so the satellites fell back into the atmosphere and were destroyed. The Space Weather Prediction Center has been collaborating with SpaceX to investigate the above occurrence and determine, among other things, how space weather models can more accurately predict atmospheric circumstances and solar storms that can destroy satellites. This new solar storm cycle, dubbed Solar Cycle 25 by space scientists, follows an 11-year period that was relatively quiet. During that time, many more satellites were launched than ever before. According to space scientists like Fang, This kind of data coordination between SpaceX and the Space Weather Prediction Center is extremely important because most existing satellite technicians are probably unprepared for the huge solar storms that are coming. Reset news. Corn, wheat and soybeans fall hit by China, Ukraine and weather. US and Europe suffer from sanctions. The economies of the Western powers have weakened. Inflation is at very high levels. Consumer confidence is fragile, and rising interest rates increase the risk of a widespread recession. Zero negative news over the weekend, according to Maxida. China's banks have closed the door on precious metals trading. The expected of a possible slowdown in global financial activity as the Asian giant's economy slows is growing. The final restart is coming, with gold set to play a bigger role, according to Kitco News. Gold prices fall on temporary dollar strength. Zinc hits a 2-month high on fears of a shortage. More than 3 billion people have crossed over to a gold-backed system. China, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, and many other countries not mentioned in the media are trading on the new system. It took only 72 hours for the new system to be up and running and trading with 12 countries. The effect of half of the 7 billion people living the central banking system means that collapse would be imminent, and world markets are collapsing. The collapse of the central banking system is happening right now. You are witnessing the collapse of the old system. In the end, the world will be connected through the quantum system. Friends do matter. Rich-poor relationships reduce inequality. Friendship in youth between individuals from different social classes is associated with adult economic mobility, according to research published in Nature. Major brands quietly snake bags into your food. On Sunday, carnivore diet guru Dr. Sean Baker tweeted a photo of a bag of cheddar cheese puffs, which instead of being made from cornmeal are filled with organic cricket flour. They are making sure the cows don't come home by building slaughterhouses along the route of their migration zone. United Nations censures criticism of elite. In response to the growing truth movement warning against a totalitarian and tyrannical takeover, the United Nations has declared war on conspiracy theories, suggesting that the world's governments are anything but honest and ethical, and has published a comprehensive guide on how to debunk and quash claims to the contrary. The Davos Forum is panicking because people are waking up, according to the X22 report. Countries are enlightening people about inflation. It won't work. The younger generation is catching on. They are realizing what inflation really is. The Davos Forum is now worried that it cannot control the narrative. Americas. Latin America revolves around the multipolar world, while the European Union follows the empire. US currencies are holding up better than most, according to Bloomberg. Mexico's National Guard creates an elite unit to carry out high-impact operations in security. Mexican National Guard deployed into Tijuana amid eruption of cattle-fueled violence. The Mexican government has arrested 9 cartel members. They are charging 4 of them with terrorism for the first time. The Inter-America Press Association urges López Obrador to curb violence against journalists in Mexico. López Obrador says violence in Mexico is exaggerated. S&P, Standard & Poor, says it will downgrade Mexican non-bank financial institutions. Díaz-Canel highlights the support of Mexico and Venezuela in the fire in Cuba. Cuba will allow foreign investment in wholesale and retail trade. War games in Venezuela sponsored by Russia. Former police commander implicated in the murder of 3 young men has fled Colombia. Argentina is heading for the highest annual inflation in decades. Argentina moves forward with subsidy cuts, key to IMF agreement. Lithium is the source of foreign exchange Argentina needs. Argentina announces it will start producing lithium batteries in December. Argentina pays almost $2 million to a bondholder in its US debt case. Argentine farmers fight against crippling export taxes. They refuse to sell soybeans, corn and wheat abroad, causing shortages and rising world prices. Argentina moves to pay its farmers a black market exchange rate to get grain to market, as all ships leaving Ukraine must be insured at a minimum of $50 million per cargo. Few companies can afford that cost. River, rail and road deliveries all the time with high fuel surcharges. It is revealed that an Argentinian police agent infiltrated the mothers of Plaza de Mayo during the dictatorship. Sexual exploitation, incest and promises of reincarnation, this is how a disbanded sect in Argentina operated for decades. Nicaragua criticizes Argentina and urges the release of the Venezuelan-Iranian plane. Ortega criticizes Argentina for holding a Venezuelan plane at the request of the US justice system. Nicaraguan diocese denounces the detention and disappearance of a priest. The Salvadoran Church commemorates 105 years since the birth of Oscar Romero. Salvadoran Human Rights Ombudsman seeks re-election despite criticism. Dominican Republic to sell bonds and cut spending to pay subsidies. Tension grows in Peru as the judicial siege against Pedro Castillo continues. Violent protest by coca growers in La Paz, Bolivia. Coca growers once again demand the closure of a market in Bolivia. Coca growers resumed their protest after negotiations with the government broke down. Bolivia begins negotiations to export the superfood chia to China. Thanks to chocolate, young people from Bolivian Amazon can stay on their land. Ecuador has managed to get rid of external economic dependence. Ecuador signs a sustainable cooperation framework with the United Nations until 2026. Mexican, Colombian and Brazilian criminal groups trigger violence in Ecuador. Ecuador's president declares a state of emergency in Guayaquil after terrorist attack. President Ecuador travels to the USA for medical tests for melanoma. Brazil's economic activity increases by 2.24% in the first half of the year. Lula maintains his lead in voting intentions for the Brazilian elections, according to polls. Indigenous Brazilians trust the new census as a solution to their problems. Canadian company promises to employ indigenous people in Amazon potash mine. Petrobras to begin partial sale of 2 concessions in the Potiguar Basin. American circuit plants are gaining ground in Western science. USA. The Inflation Reduction Act will cost the middle class $20 billion in new taxes. US housing starts near their lowest level in a year and a half. Texas crude oil falls 3.2% to close at $86.53 a barrel. Elon Musk says he will buy Manchester United. Evidence confirms Tua Flight 800 was shot down, followed by a massive coordinated cover-up to hide the truth. Arizona State Senator Wendy Rogers wrote, in quotes, "We need many arrests, courts and severe constitutional punishments for the treason that has gone on. We will get to this moment in due time." Rand Paul moves to pull the rug out from under the Justice Department and leave them with nothing usable from the Mar-a-Lago raid. The FBI told Mar-a-Lago staff and lawyers to turn off all security cameras in the house before the raid, but this didn't happen. It was recorded as several cameras were left on. Eric Trump says he will release the surveillance tapes showing the FBI raid. According to U.S. Attorney Durham's investigation, it was the same FBI agents who participated in the fake Russian collusion. The FBI erects barricades around its headquarters building in Washington, D.C. The FBI seized Trump's records under attorney-client protection during the raid, sources say. Donald Trump says the FBI confiscated his 3 passports in the Mar-a-Lago raid. The Justice Department acknowledges that FBI agents confiscated Trump's passports. Trump's niece Mary reveals who she believes tipped off the FBI about classified documents stored at Mar-a-Lago. White Hats to Trump. Don't Negotiate with Orcs by Michael Baxter. A top commander of General Bayer wanted Trump on Monday not to negotiate or open cordial communication with the dark side, according to Real Raw News. Justice Department asks judge to keep Trump's speaking affidavit sealed. At least 20 FBI and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosive Assets were embedded around the Capitol on January 6, 2021. A defense attorney claimed in April 12 court filing. Confident gives details of FBI plan and its militarization for the Democratic Party. Rudy Giuliani under criminal investigation in Georgia. Pennsylvania Governor Scott Perry on Sunday warned all citizens that they should plan to have tyranny enter their home in the form of federal agents if they refuse to be nice to the authorities, according to Steve Watson. Biden has just signed Executive Order number 14067. Could set the stage for legal government surveillance of all citizens. total control over your bank accounts and purchases, ability to silence all dissenting voices forever. Europe. European stock markets rebound for a fifth day thanks to the defensive and mining sectors. London Metal Exchange suspends Russian nickel from UK warehouses. The UK reopens its largest gas storage facility. Gas prices rise again in Germany. Gas consumption in Germany fell by 15% in the first half of the year. Lack of rain in Europe is killing fish. The inferno of fires doesn't end in southwest Europe. The nightmare of the Serra da Estrela in Portugal is not over. Its intensity is such that smoke has covered the skies over Madrid. Meanwhile, the Spanish also have several open fronts. On particular concern are two major fires in the Valencian community, which have forced the evacuation of certain municipalities, the closure of a dozen roads, and the interruption of rail traffic. The fire in Zaragoza has stabilized and is still in full swing. Ukraine mocks Spain for its scant shipment of arms, less than Portugal. Spaniards disapprove of proposal to block Russian tourists' access to the European Union. Ukraine. The US is to buy $68 million worth of Ukrainian grain for the United Nations program to combat hunger in poor countries. Sanctions against Russia are far from achieving the expected results. The situation at the Zaporizhzhia power plant revives the spectre of Chernobyl. The Zaporizhzhia authorities claim that Ukraine is deliberately attacking weak points at the nuclear power plants. Moscow calls the fire at the weapons depot in Crimea sabotage. Putin will arm allies that do not submit to Western diktat. Putin says he is step by step liberating the Donbass, and Kiev, which rejects the attacks. Russia in the Sahel, a link between the Gulf of Guinea and North Africa. Russia shares an alliance with Mali's coup regime that it hopes to extend to other Sahel countries to become the most influential power in this strategic and unstable desert region. Asia. Chinese industrial production rose by 3.8% year-on-year in July. China reduces its holdings of US treasuries for the 7th consecutive month. China imposes sanctions on 7 Taiwanese politicians after US delegation's visit. Chinese exploration vessel docks in Sri Lanka despite India and US concerns. Clandestine school for girls proliferate under Taliban rule in Afghanistan. Humanitarian crisis for women after 1 year of Taliban rule, says United Nations. Second attack in 24 hours on international coalition bases in Syria. Turkish airstrikes leave 3 Syrian military dead and 6 wounded. Russia blames Israel for violating the demarcation line on the Golan Heights. The Iranian government blames Rushdie for the attack and denies links to the attack. Iran nuclear deal broken in 2018 close to resumption after new European Union proposal. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.